So for today, we're going to learn how to solve by elimination. Now, looking at question number 9, in elimination, I want it such that when I combine my like terms, one of my letters cancels out. If I combine the x's, negative 6 plus 6 is 0x, that basically cancels out. When I combine the y's, negative 7 plus 6, that gives me negative 1y. So I'm just going to write negative y equals negative 2 plus 0 gives me negative 2. I was just combining my like terms, and I wanted one of my letters to cancel out. Now my y is not quite by itself. There's a negative 1 in front of it, so let me divide both sides by negative 1. So I have that 1y is equal to positive 2. I know half of my answer. The y value is 2. I need to find out the x value. Now for my x value, I'm going to use from my original equations, I'm going to use any of them. Let me use this one just to choose one. So I have that 6x plus 6 times 2, because I know y equals 2. So 6x plus 6 times 2 is equal to 0. Notice I copy the same equation, it's just that I replace the value of y with 2. So I have that 6x plus 12 is equal to 0. My plus 12, let me move it over as a minus 12. So I have that 6x equals negative 12. Divide by 6, x equals negative 2. So now I know my x value, and that's my answer. Remember to write them in alphabetical order, the x first and then the y. Let's take a look at question number 10. I want them such that when I combine them, one of my terms cancels out. 3y minus 3y is 0, so that's good. Let me combine the x's, negative 7 and a positive 1. So negative 7 plus 1, that gives me negative 6x equals negative 21 plus 3, that's going to give me negative 18. Let me divide each of my sides by negative 6. So I get that x is equal to positive 3. So on my answer, I know my x value. Now let me find out my y value. I'm going to use any of my equations. It doesn't matter which one. It seems like I'm going to choose this one just because the numbers are a little bit smaller. So I have that 3 minus 3y is equal to 3. Let me move the 3 over as a minus 3. So I have that negative 3y is equal to 0. Let me divide by negative 3. 0 divided by negative 3 is 0. So now I know my y value. So my answer is 3, 0. Make sure that after the comma you put a space. And so you want your equations that one of them cancels out. Let's take a look at number 11. In this case, none of them cancel out. If I was to add my x's, I get negative x. If I was to combine my y's, I get negative 30y. So none of them cancel out. What I'm going to do, let me multiply the second one by 2. It might seem like I have a random number. I'll show you guys in a minute why. So let me copy the first equation. I have negative 2x minus 10y equals negative 12. The second equation, I said I'm going to multiply everything by 2. So I have 2x minus 40y is equal to 12. Now, the reason why I multiplied the bottom by 2 is because I wanted my x's to be the same number, just different signs, because now I can combine them and they cancel out. So it's not that I just multiply by a random number. I was looking at the x's and I said, well, how can I make them cancel out if I multiply the second one by 2? If you wanted to get rid of the y's, we could have done it as well. I would have multiplied the first one by negative 2, because then that will make this positive 20. Right, so if you're looking at to cancel the y's, you can multiply the first one by negative 2. I chose to cancel the x's. So now going back to what I have here, let me combine the y's. I have that negative 50y is equal to 0. Let me divide by negative 50. 0 divided by negative 50, 0. So I know half of my answer. I'm going to put it here, the y value. Now I need to solve for my x value. I'm going to use any equation that I have, any of them. I'm going to choose this one. I don't know the x value, so I'm just going to write x minus 20 times 0, it's equal to 6. So I have x minus 0, right, because 20 times 0 is 0, is equal to 6. X minus 0 can just be simplified as x is equal to 6. Okay, so I have the value of x now. So my answer is 6, 0. Take a look at number 12. I want one of my letters to cancel out. If I want my x's, now looking at 2 and 5, I cannot easily make a 2 become a 5, or I cannot make a 5 become a 2. But I can make both of them become 10s. So if I want to cancel out the x's, I will multiply this one by 5. And I will multiply this one by 2. Because then the x's would become 10. I want one of them to be negative, one of them to be positive. At the moment, I have both of them to be negatives. So let me change the sign on this one. So I can always multiply both equations. Right? I multiply the first one by 5 and I get negative 10x. I multiply the second one by negative 2, I get positive 10x, and my x's will cancel out. That's if I want to cancel out the x's. Now, what if I want to cancel out the y's? I'm looking at the y's and I said, well, this is 1, this is 2. I think it's easy to cancel out the y's if I multiply this first one by a negative 2. Because then my y is going to become negative 2y, which will cancel with the other y. So I'm going to cancel out the y's. So going back on the first equation, multiplied everything by negative 2. So I have 4x minus 2y is equal to negative 14. Once again, I multiplied everything by negative 2. The second equation, I'm just going to copy it as it is. Negative 5x plus 2y is equal to 18. And I know the y's cancel out. They have the same number. One of them is positive, one of them is negative. When I combine the x's, I get negative 1x. 14 minus 18, that gives, negative 14 plus 18, that gives me positive 4. Let me divide by negative 1. So x in this case is negative 1. I know half of my answer. Now let me solve for y. I'm going to use any equation that I have. Let me choose this first one before I multiplied. I want to choose this one. I have that negative 2 times x, so negative 1. So negative 2 times negative 1 plus y is equal to 7. I know negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. So positive 2 plus y is equal to 7. My 2, let me move it over. So I have that y is equal to 5. So I know my y value. Once again, make sure when you answer it, when you type it, there's a space after the comma. 2 more examples. Let's take a look at number 13. I want one of my letters to cancel out. I can multiply the first equation by negative 5 to make the x's cancel out. Or I can multiply the first equation by negative 6 to make the y's cancel out. In this case, let me multiply by negative 5. I'm going to cancel out the x's. Let me multiply everything by negative 5. So I have negative 5x plus 10y is equal to 10. The second equation, let me copy it as it is. 5x minus 12y equals negative 2. I know the x's cancel out. Now 10y minus 2y is equal to negative 2y. 10 minus 2 is 8. Let me divide each by negative 2. So y equals negative 4. So I know half of my answer. I know my y value. Remember, I have to answer them in alphabetical order. Now let me solve for x. Let me use the first equation. You can use any equation. I'm going to use the first one. So I have that x minus 2 times -4 is equal to -2. So I have that x plus 8, right? -2 minus 4 is plus 8 is equal to -2. Once again, -2 times -4 gave me positive 8. So that's why I wrote x plus 8 equals -2. To get the x by itself, the plus 8, let me move it over as a minus 8. So I get that x is equal to -10. All right, let's take a look at number 14. Now, I can cancel the x if I multiply the first one by 2, because that x will become 4x, so x's can cancel out. Or I can cancel the y if I multiply the second one by -2. I think it's easy to cancel the x in this case, so let me multiply the first one by positive 2. So I'm going to have 4x plus 8y is equal to 52. I multiplied everything by 2. The second equation, let me leave it alone, minus 4x plus 2y equals 28. I notice the x is 4 minus 4 is 0, so the x's cancel out. Now 8y plus 2y, that's 10y. 52 plus 28, that's 80. Let me divide by 10. So I get that y is equal to 8. So I know half of my answer. Now let me figure out the x value. Let's see which equation is easier to deal with. They look about the same. Personal choice, I don't want to deal with negatives if possible. So I'm going to choose the first equation. So I have 2x plus 4 times 8 is equal to 26. So 2x plus 32 equals 26. Now the 32, let me move it over as a minus 32. So I get the 2x is equal to -6. Let me divide by 2. X equals -3. So I know my x value. Make sure when you type it, you do use your parentheses. You do use the comma after the first number, and there's a space after the comma. So let me emphasize, there's a space after the comma. The only space is the one after the comma.